All flights are now boarding. Welcome to Indie Game International.
I am joined today, once again, for a second time, by the team over at Hyper 3 Studio. Guys, why don't you introduce yourselves?
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Abraham, and I'm the creative director for Tinylands. And I work with my brother. We are currently working in Tinylands, which is our game. And yeah, pretty much that's my quick introduction.
Very cool.
Hello, everyone.
Isaac.
My name is Isaac, and I am the lead developer of Tinylands, part of the Hyper 3 Studio team.
Very exciting. And so last time you guys were on, we talked very in depth about the base game, Tinylands. That was the reason I hit you guys up for an interview. This time I don't necessarily want to get into repeat stuff. I don't necessarily want to talk about the game itself. But for anyone listening who maybe missed that episode, why don't you guys give us I know you did this last time, but give us a real quick elevator pitch for just explain to us what is Tinylands, the game we're talking about.
Okay. So basically, Tinylands is a find the difference game. If you knew the old find the difference that you found in the newspaper. So it's basically the same concept, but Tinylands is a 3D concept. In which you can rotate, you can zoom, you can pan, and you have to explore all the environment and find the difference. But what makes Tinylands to stand out is that it has some dynamic elements like rain, thunders, and it also has amazing sound effects that makes you feel that you are in the diorama. So basically, it's a small island where you have to find the difference and enjoy a nice, chill and relaxed game.
Basically, it's 3D, but it's also, I guess I knew this because I love the game and I play the game, but to put it into words, it's like a vibrant, non-stagnant, almost living diorama in which you get to find the difference, which is very cool. And it's very atmospheric. The music, as we talked about, is amazing by Big Rice Piano. The whole thing, sound effects. It's extremely immersive, which is interesting because basically you're looking at a scene that's in pause, and yet you can find little stories within each one, all the atmospheric sound effects, all that stuff. It is such a great game. I was chomping at the bit to play the new DLC, which you guys had mentioned to me in the last interview. And I finally got to play it. It was released on August 26th. Just tell me about, I guess, generally. So one of my questions is basically, when did the idea for the DLC come to you for Tinylands? Did you always want to do it and you were waiting to see if the game was successful? Or how did you come about the idea to release new content for Tinylands?
Okay, so at the beginning, one of the pillars of making the game, it was thinking on being expandable. So not only thinking of the current how to say, the first
just with the base
stage of the game, but to think on how we can expand more the game in the future if everything went well, right? Because we didn't know at that moment if we're going to get a publisher, if we're going to end the game because we didn't have resources. Mm-hmm. So, but from the original idea, we think about this game should be easy to add more content, or should leave the opening to include more content in the future. So we designed the game in a structure that we can easily add new content whenever we want. We see it it's a very seasonal style of game because it depends and it can adapt to any theme that we could create, right? So it's not something that we just created after the game ended. I think we started the DLC a month before the original game release. So we already started working on that from before. So I think that's a great structure to think your games, because you only don't need to think that it can end on the final stage of the game, but maybe thinking something else that can be added later on, because you don't know if it's going to be a huge success. So what else are you going to provide to the community to keep feeding from your game, right? Or keep it more relevant on Steam, because it can easily be forgotten on the sea of new games that each day releases on Steam. So that's why we think that it's very important to think it from the beginning when you're creating a game.
Right. So before you announced that you would be putting out DLC, was the community asking you for more levels?
Yes, part of the Steam reviews, where we received a lot of reviews that were saying like, I need more, we need more content, and we would love to play new content and new levels. And so we saw that the people were interested in playing new content. So that really motivated us more and pushed it up us more to continue working in new content.
It's interesting because when you mentioned that you were making DLC in the last interview, I couldn't help but think of something like a crossword puzzle or Sudoku, where it's like this base thing. It's like a puzzle that you could pretty much infinitely make more. You could always make more crossword puzzles. You know what I mean? Like it's like you mentioned in the last interview, it's scalable. It is extremely scalable. And because it's so fun, I think there will, I almost think you have like an infinite audience, pretty much. I can't imagine when we get sick of it.
Yeah. One of the things that it's very, interesting in Tinylands is that, we could has, for example, for me as a programmer, I'm very moving to, auto-generated content and things like that. But the difference in Tinyland is that if you see that every level has its own story, it's very handcrafted. So we didn't wanted to make yes, it has the potential to provide auto-generated levels, and so you can play a lot of levels. But we didn't want to go to that point, because we wanted players to experience one of each of the levels that has a specific story. It could be in the future, and we also thought about Steamworks. I think it's called Steam Workshop. That imagine that if players could make their own levels and share them with the community so that people can play, but that's in the far future from now. But yes, so that's pretty much how we thought about the level design or the level concept for Tinylands.
So actually, that's really interesting that you just brought that up, because I guess you're right. You technically could have what's the term that they use? I'm blanking right now.
It's called
No Man's Sky.
Procedural generator.
Procedural generation. Yeah.
You could totally make procedurally generated levels in Tinylands, but I will say as a fan that is not why I play Tinylands, for procedurally generated levels. I play Tinylands because of the stories and the handcrafted nature of each of these little scenes. And all the new levels, the old levels had this too, but all the new levels, I was amazed at just how interesting each little scene was and how many little tiny stories are told within these tiny lands. I want to get to specifics later, but first, I'm curious, this is kind of just a random question. How do you guys feel about the term DLC? Because when I was a young gamer, you always bought video games on a disc for a console, and then DLC was literally downloadable content that was for games that you bought physically. So is DLC an outdated term, do you think?
I think so, because nowadays, I think it's more like making content for the community rather than something that you feel like is separated from the game and like an add-on or something that is new for the game. I don't know how to explain it. It's kind of difficult, but I think DLC, as you mentioned, I think it's a little bit like an old term,
right?
That should have like a new vision, because DLC nowadays are like actualizations or maybe new events, but not a separate DLC, but something that it's coming from the game. A good example, is Genshin Impact. every time Genshin Impact release any event or anything, I see that as a DLC, but they never say that word, right? Because this is a new way of games to keep the community retained on their game. The model is different because the game is free. They obviously need to keep something relevant for the people who want to pay every time that something new came. But I think this is changing a little bit the way of games should work if you want it to last a lot of time. Otherwise, they're gonna end your game and they're gonna forget about your game.
Yeah, it's almost like you guys are you're game developers, but at the same time, you're community builders and you're community sustainers. If you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, because at some point in the future, if we release Timeline 2 or maybe a new project, our community that we have right now, it's going to be very relevant for us because it's going to give you a more scope of how far can we go with a new project, right? So as much as we get our community happy with the content, so they will have I know it's like a person, right? A very kind person, a very fun person. If this person do something else, a lot of people is going to follow that person, right? So the game is the same. If people is seeing that we care about the game because we care a lot, that we put a lot of effort and a lot of love, they will surely think that the next game is going to be the same or better because you always get better and better each time you create something, right? So that's kind of the vision.
Well, I definitely want to commend you guys because it's interesting how obviously you're artists, you are creating something, something that is creative, a video game, but at the same time, making games is a business. If you want to continue to make games, you have to sustain yourselves. So I commend you greatly for not going down that procedurally generated route or some kind of cheap way of just putting out content to keep people hooked. You guys really are going in there and handcrafting these amazing levels. And I found myself playing the new levels thinking, because part of you thinks while playing this game that you wouldn't want to go back and play levels that you already know where all the things are missing. But at the same time, while I was playing the new levels, I had nostalgia for the old levels. I was remembering the older levels, even though I've 100% of them. At one point, I thought of the one with the ship with all the containers on it. And it's almost like you don't live within these tiny lands for the short amount of time that you do just to figure out the puzzle. You do it to be immersed in this little tiny scene and have a little tiny story told you while you look for differences. So I commend you guys for sticking to making these immaculately crafted worlds that we get to explore for the short amount of time that we do. So right on that.
Yeah, sure thing. We're sticking to that. That's what I was mentioning, and it's really important for us, as you mentioned, that even if it takes you 5 minutes to complete a level, we want that those 5 minutes you feel something different on each level. You understand, or you experience the story within the level. You feel something. You remember something of that level. So that's why, even if you are going just to stay 5 minutes on that level, we want that those 5 minutes are enjoyable.
Very cool. You guys-
and also, we saw a lot of videos on Twitch, and we really enjoy just seeing the people naming the levels because, the game doesn't have any names on the level, so it's up to each person, right? What do you find or what do you see on each level? So it's very inspired that people use almost 99% of the same name that we put on the level. So that's a good path because we're doing the work correctly. So people can identify quickly what is this level about, what is the story behind it. So it's very inspiring for us just to see how people can understand without seeing any text, without seeing any story, without seeing anything with movement. So I think that's one of the more satisfactory feelings for the developers, I think, when people enjoy the level without you saying anything about the level.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting that you mentioned that because I've recently become very fascinated with nonverbal communication or nonverbal storytelling, which often you find in indie games, or not even just nonverbal, even when there's just no text involved. I think it's really interesting to see, like you mentioned, how people then come together who have played the same nonverbal game and try to talk about it to each other. I think it's really interesting, to see how people, like you said, end up sometimes using the exact same words to describe something that had no words attributed to it before that.
Yes, we were in a specific stream with a Japanese Twitcher. He was playing one of the level, which is like the yoga level, and there's a guy eating a hamburger.
Yes.
And then even if I don't speak or I don't understand too much the Japanese, I could realize that he was laughing about, because he was pointing with the mouse and he was laughing about that this guy was doing exercise or yoga, but he was eating a hamburger instead. So it's pretty fun that you don't need to put some language there, because people will understand that. And that we think that this is very beneficial for the game, that people can understand without the language.
100%. And I noticed that too. Like if you were watching, if I had been streaming, you would have seen me zooming in on him. And I even noticed that the women in there all have waters next to them, and it appears that he has a Coke.
Yeah. In these new ones, we try to invest a lot of time on each level and make something like there's always need to be something funny happening, or maybe something secret. We put an Easter egg on one of the levels, which is a flag for country. So if people, I mean, like I can say, because no one knows which country are we, right? Because not much people know about the country we are. So, but there is this Easter egg. Like I would love to see this screenshot on Steam, because people put a lot of like screenshots. There is another, I'm going to say it here because it's very underground Easter egg, which is the name of my wife in Japanese, which is in one of the levels of the Japanese market.
Really?
So yeah, I saw on Steam one player that put a screenshot and say, Raquel nan desu ka? And because I know a little bit of Japanese, I could understand that he was asking what Raquel means. And obviously I'm not going to answer, but it's fun that people can notice these small details on the game. So yeah.
Okay, so I really want to call out one of the Easter eggs. And if you want, I can edit this out if you want me to, but I have to mention my absolute favorite one is in the saloon level in the Western theme. How there's a guy with a suitcase and there's a ray gun in it.
Yeah.
When I saw that, I jumped for joy. I thought it was the coolest little thing to discover in that level.
Yeah. We put little small stories, and in that level there are two like small stories. If you can notice, there is one cowboy who is sit and the other chair is empty, and he has two drinks. So probably the story could be like an old friend is not there anymore, but he's drinking in his name. So small things that make great stories is one of the main reason of what it takes to learn to make levels on Tiny Lands, because it's not just putting a lot of assets on the level, but to telling stories that way that people are not going to read or see anything else.
And another one I want to call out so bad is and as a sci-fi fan, like this is primarily my Space Dreamers podcast is primarily about science fiction. I absolutely loved the space themed levels, and one of the funniest ones within that theme is where the people are feeding the alien, the happy kind of rotund alien, and it looks like their supervisor on the hologram clearly looks like he's very stressed out.
Yeah, that's great that you could. Yeah. He's like wasting the time.
Yeah. Like, get back to work, please. Stop feeding the local aliens.
Yeah. In this new DLC, we created more than 120 new models for these 30 new levels. So you can see, like, even if we could reuse a lot of assets that we create, we try to put like new things on each level just to not make people feel tired about seeing repeatable things. And it gives you more like fresh view, and you can vary even more with new assets. So we put a lot of work on creating new things on this one.
And we also added like over like 90 SFX in the game. You may or may not have listened all the SFX because they play randomly. So probably on each level you have like 10 SFX, but maybe you didn't hear them all, and that's what makes also like a different experience.
Yeah, I did definitely notice new sound effects for sure. I also noticed like in terms like visually, there were quite a few effects going on visually that I didn't notice in the original levels. Like I remember one, I think in the Western level where there's like spirit animals like kind of floating up. And I found that really interesting. It made the level like a lot more dynamic, something I don't think I saw in the original base game, which is very cool.
Yeah. I think like we have a lot of things that we can exploit for the game, but we find that depends of the team, we can use it or not. Another thing which I think is important to talk about is about the new feature of the panning camera. It was something that the community was asking for, and we give priority to that. So I don't know if you try it out or you see it, how this dramatically changed the approach of the game, because now we put new difference on the borders of the diorama. So that really changed a little bit of the way of the game.
Yes, I did want to get to the new features, and that is probably the most prominent one, is the ability to pan left and right, not just zoom in. I did like that, and what it does is it, in my opinion, it opens up, like you said, I guess, more possibilities for more hidden things, because there was something about the base game where all you could do is zoom, where it kind of gave you boundaries. It made you think, well, there's not going to be anything tiny. There aren't going to be any tiny differences on the border because I can't see them from this far away. So then when you add the ability to pan, you're adding like a whole new dimension or a whole new, you're expanding the amount of space you have to work with as developers and as gamers. So I found that very interesting.
Yeah, I think that's also, we see an upgrade on visual content right now, because now we can use the borders and extremes of the diorama. So that really opens more possibility to create more stories or more things related to the theme that can add up more like a visual impact. You know, like the skate park looks very filled with things that if we didn't have the pan feature, perhaps the borders will be like kind of dead. We cannot put many things there because we don't want the player to get confused that maybe a difference will be on a corner, right? But right now we have the freedom to do everything we want. So it was a relief for us too, because now we can be very creative with the levels. That's why I think that these 3 new worlds are a little bit not harder, but they feel a little bit more like with more content than the first one, because in the first one we were like limited with the feature of the panning. But yeah, good thing is like the community told and give some very good feedback and recommendation, and we took that on the game, and it only converts into more positive comments and more positive reviews. So we're happy with that.
Yeah, I really, I knew that there was going to be new features, but I was pleasantly surprised when I realized you could pan. I also noticed that there's like a collapsible menu.
You can hide it. Yes, if you want your screen clean, then now you can hide everything.
Yeah, I was always, as soon as I realized I could do that, I always kept it hidden. Are there any other features that you added? I don't think I noticed anything else.
I think that for the moment, those were the ones that we really wanted to implement to the game. And we did some minor VGMs adjustment, and we also did some adjustment with the post-processing effect, because there were like some cropped shadows at the edge, but something minimal, something that we didn't even receive any feedback about that, but we just noticed that when we were testing on Nintendo Switch. And maybe one of the important things that if any developers is listening to this interview is that, for example, we received this feedback in the first month, people wanted to pan, people wanted to feel more like freedom. We also received some feedbacks about the space that the UI was using. Like that's why we added the button to hide all the UI elements. Mm-hmm. But we didn't. We could have done the fix. Okay, now you can hide this, and now you can pan. But the difference is we waited to implement these features with the new content because the first levels were designed in that way. So it wouldn't make so much sense to release the pan function with the base level that were not designed with that. Yeah. So it could be good. It could have been good, but it wasn't important at that moment. So we waited until the new content so that the players who completed the game could have like the experience to have these new functions in new levels, because it wouldn't have been the same impact if you completed the game in the first month and then you wait like 6 months for enabled panning to play the same 5 levels. It wouldn't make any sense.
Right.
So we wanted to wait for that with the new content, so we could add like a whole new experience with the new content.
That's really interesting. It's amazing. I mean, this is why you guys are the developers and we're the gamers, is because we ask for things, but if you really think about it, it doesn't make any sense. The original levels were designed in a specific way. I'm curious though. I have not played any of the original levels since the DLC came out. Can you pan in the original levels now?
Yes, it's a function in general in the game. It's in general. You can now pan. You can have like different perspectives, but the difference haven't changed.
Well, that makes perfect sense. And I think that'll add to the original levels, because like I mentioned before, you don't just play this game to figure out the differences and to solve the puzzle. You play it to be immersed in the world. So now I get to go back into those old levels and really zoom in and pan and explore the whole story that's going on in each level, which I think will be super fun, even though it wasn't necessarily designed for that. I'm going to do it just for the atmosphere. So that's very cool.
Yeah. Also, thinking about like this way of thinking, it was only for the people who already bought the game, but what happened with the new people, right? How we can make this more attractive for people who haven't bought Tiny Lands. So we took this time just to see, for example, we have a big amount of wish list on Steam and wanted to put like a very attractive opportunity for those people who haven't bought Tiny Lands, right? Because it's a very big number of wish list. So we see a big opportunity there, and we say how we can make these people who haven't bought the game, maybe because of the price, maybe because they didn't notice the game, but just put it like we put new content, we put new features, and we put a discount for the game. So maybe this is very, very attractive for people who have it on wish list, and there is a chance that you don't have to miss. So seeing in two perspective, like the one with the players who already bought the game, but what happened with the new players. So we have to fuse those two paths into a new one, and we have to be very careful of how to sell this new update for the game. And having free content is very, it's a very positive thing for a game, right? You don't have to pay anything. You should be paying the first price and you get all of this new content, right?
So did you guys notice a jump in sales when you released the DLC?
Yes, we are noticing like a higher conversion. Our main target were the wishlist people.
Okay.
So we have seen an increment, a good increment of wishlist and also wishlist conversion. So our wishlist conversion have increased a lot since the release of this content.
Very cool. Congratulations. I'm happy for you guys.
Yeah, we're happy too. We're very surprised with the result of the first 5 days. So we are great.
So to get a little more specific, how did you guys decide on the new themes? I noticed one is about sports, one is the old-timey Western theme, and one is outer space. Did you have any themes that you wanted to do that you had to like disregard? Yeah. Or how did you come to the decision to do these three?
So the first one, the space, it was already on the beginning, because when you clear the game, you see the adventure will continue message on a space theme, right?
Very true.
So that was very already on the list. And then because of the Olympic Games, a lot of things and the metadata on the Google and anything will be related to sports. So we wanted to put something like on the topic, and things that can be understandable for people. And that's something really relevant this past month or this month, because it hasn't ended. Right. And then the Wild West, I think more of having a list of themes is something that can be easy understandable, because themes can be a lot of topics, right? But I think everyone knows about sports, everyone knows about things of space, everyone knows about Western, or the Wild West. So they are very like how to say it? You can have
I
a
think
lot of potential.
it's common themes that people easily will understand. Because if we like can make like, for example, I don't know, just a, a gamer specific theme. Maybe not that maybe all our players are not like hardcore gamers, right? Are just casual gamers, so they maybe don't understand some reference. So I think that's pretty much how we decided the themes, things that are easy to understand for everyone, and then we pick like something that looks cool, could be cool to have in the game, and to create some cool environments that we can put in the game. So that's pretty much how we decide. Yeah.
My favorite was far and away the outer space one. I thought that was practically like tailor made for me. Do you guys have a favorite of the 3 new themes?
I have one. I think it's the on the Wild West. Okay. I think it was the duel. Like where the cowboys are having a battle card.
Oh yes.
Yeah, so that's like my favorite one, because I don't know, it has a lot of references and the lighting and everything. I like it a lot to make that level. Yeah, that's pretty much one of my favorites. One.
Awesome.
Yeah, my favorite is also like the Western one, because I think that we managed to create like the desert feeling. So I found it pretty enjoyable for me.
Awesome. So I love you guys. I love Tiny Lands, but I have a bone to pick with you. So correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't you guys mention in the last interview that you were thinking of doing a level that was the 2 of you, or the 3 of you working in your own office, and that would be a level that we could pick out the differences in?
Yeah. I don't know if we can say it right now, Isaac, but well, we can say it. We have plans for a new DLC. So in those themes, it's going to be cities and houses.
Awesome.
So probably it will be there.
Okay.
But yeah, it's going to be fun. Yeah.
I was like scanning each little world to be like, which one of these looks like an office? I so badly want to play that level, but if it's in the works, I'm happy. That's so cool.
Yeah, we're definitely thinking on the new one. And if you have cleared the game, you have already a hint of what is coming.
Have you seen the credits again? So the credits are changing.
Okay, well, I did watch the credits, and I did notice the moon landing thing at the end.
Yeah, that's in the first version. But now with the update, we have changed the credits. So this is for people who has bought the game, and they will see a different end scene in the credit. The last one changes. So that's one. If you got the game, now you will experience a new ending scene, which we used to give hint that it's like saying, we're working in more content. Don't worry.
Yes. Okay, I dig it. I'm gonna have to watch the credits again.
Yeah. That's another secret you need to reveal.
So I'm curious. I have a question, I guess, about the game in general. Because I was thinking about it while I was playing the new content. So basically, your game, the very nature of your game, invites the player or requires the player to zoom in and literally scrutinize your hard work. So how does that make you feel? Does it add extra pressure to make everything look as good as you can possibly make it? Or do you just accept that that's the nature of the game? Because some games, like, you see things from far away and they look cool. You don't really notice them. You know what I mean? Like, you don't notice the trees, but they add to the overall image. With your game, the whole point is to zoom in and scrutinize. Does that put pressure on you guys, or how do you feel about that?
I think it's related of the nature of the game. It's because it's based on details and how many things you can see at the moment. I mean, like, people could be comfortable just to see the big panorama, but other people, which are perfectionists and really detailed persons, will like to zoom in and check each of those details, and they will enjoy that. So it depends of the person, but the nature of the game is meant to be as much detail as we could add, the better, right? As much things that make sense one to each other, next to each other, or over or next to it, or maybe a position of a character is doing something, telling something, the better for the game. You know, in the tennis court level, the people who is in the, I don't know how to say, the stairs,
And
the ladders, yeah. So each one of them, it's doing something. Like, it's not randomly purpose put it there.
Right.
Each one of the assets has its own purpose. So, and you can find stories within those things. So either you see it from far away, you will see the overall story, but if you zoom in, you will find small stories. So it's very open of what you can tell about the game.
And I had mentioned in the last interview that's probably one of my favorite parts of the game, is that there are little tiny stories within the overall story of each tiny land. And you guys definitely succeeded in doing that. There are so many other like little things I didn't mention, like, you know, like the guy in I love the guy in the basketball level who's like tripping over the cone. Like, there's so many little stories within the tiny lands that I dig it. But I was just curious because I realized while I was playing, like, the whole point of this is to scrutinize. So I just wondered if it put extra pressure, but clearly that's the point of the game.
One of the things that we noticed in the first release, when we were watching some streamers, and specific Japanese streamers, is that we found that they were like why is this in this position? Why is this in this position? Why he's bald? Why he's eating this? And just so when we saw that, we started to think it puts us a little bit of pressure from our side, because maybe we didn't consider everything. And that was like a lesson learned, that we need to think, if we put this, what will people think? If we put this there, what will people think? Or if we put this object here, it will make sense, yes or no? So this really helped us to design this new content. So we took that and we put it in practice in this new content. We considered a lot of things.
So I'm curious about playtesting this game. Do you ever make a level where, or I wonder how often this happens, where you make a change that just nobody can find, so you have to redo it? Like, how often do you make it too difficult and have to go back and make it easier, or the other way around?
Well, actually, we haven't done any update regarding to the difficulty. What we do is that, for example, our publishers do some tests on their side, so that really help us to find some issues.
Maybe technical testing. It's like a technical testing, but not the visual testing or difficulty testing.
Okay. And another thing that we do is that, for example, it's not like the way you should do the things. Is like, for example, my wife is not a gamer. I mean, she doesn't play games at all. And what I do is I put her to play the game and tell me how difficult she thinks it is. Okay. So I really get some good feedback, because since she's not a gamer, like, her point of view is very useful. And we do that with other people who are not like hardcore gamers, or people that are really. So if these people feel the game, it's nice, it's easy, so we kind of measured like the difficulty in that. We also play the game, but it's not the same thing if I just test the game, because I know where the difference are. Right. But for example, Abraham doesn't know where the difference are. I am the one that I choose which difference I am going to set. Okay. So that keeps,
because I'm visually contaminated with all the props and all the landscape, that it's going to be hard for me to decide what is going to be a difference, because I see it in another perspective. So I'm not the right person to make the difference, because I probably will do it like harder than anything, because I create the level and I would like to see the difficulty in what I made. So that's why it's better that Isaac choose the.
So in the short term, in the short term, the team, no one's know where the difference are but me, because I'm the one that I put the difference and program everything. And then I later send them the build. So I say to them, okay, just play the game. Let me know if you feel the difference are super hardcore or super easy. And sometimes they come and say, okay, I think this difference is super difficult. People wouldn't. And then I made some minor changes and things like that. So that's how we like polish the difficulty. And then of course we receive the feedback from the publishers, and that helps us a lot.
Yeah, and add to that, it's not only that the two of us of the team test the game, but we have like a beta testing group in Steam. But no, it's not more like 10 people that they try out, and we have like a Google form, and we put like in which level do you make the 5 difference, and seeing like data show you that 100% of the people didn't complete the level 4, for example.
Okay.
So we're seeing that something is happening there, right? So we try to test it again and test it until it's not that the game's easy, but the only thing that we look for is like you don't blame the game. It's like when you find a difference, you see the difference was there, but I was blind or I didn't saw it in this way. So that's the best feedback that we can get for validating the difficulty of the difference rather than this is crazy. This is impossible. The game, this is like super hard.
Right.
It's the people say it was easy, but I didn't see it before. I don't know why, but I didn't see it. So that's pretty much what we do in the testing. It's kind of difficult, I know, but we try to manage and to be very balanced and not making a very hardcore game because our audience is not hardcore gamers,
right.
But not making it easy because you want to complete it in 20 minutes, right? We want to like you to enjoy, take your time and everything.
Yeah, I think you guys struck a perfect balance. I didn't find any level to be too easy or too hard. There's like a couple spikes of difficulty here and there, but I think those are valuable.
Yeah. Usually there is always one difficult who is hard, but not impossible.
Right.
But normally we try to like for a norm, 4 of the differences are pretty normal, but there is one that is a little bit harder. It depends of the people, but something that may be harder for me is going to be easier for other person. But there is always one that is hard to find.
Yeah. So do you guys have any plans to port this game to PlayStation or Xbox?
We have already registered for PlayStation partner. We already partnered with PlayStation, and also we have our Xbox developer account set up. But we're still working on that because we have to get the dev kits and we have to port the game and things like that. But it can be in the future, but not like in this moment. I can say it's like if I say, okay, he's going to be in this console and that one because it's still in progress. But we have like the desire, but it's not in the main plans right now.
Well, that's perfectly understandable. I think it would do quite well on PS4. I discovered indie gaming via my PlayStation 4. Basically, I got really into indie gaming because of my PS4. So I think it would definitely find an audience there. I can't imagine why it wouldn't on Xbox as well.
Mm-hmm. I think it's mostly because I'm not like a PS player. So I'm pretty sure that the few times that I have played PlayStation, I don't think like the store have some visibility for indie games because usually the main attention is taken by the big games. So but because again, I don't know too much about that.
Yeah,
but yeah,
I think it depends on the gamer. But it's definitely there. There are definitely indie games on the PS4. They actually just recently had a sale that was indie games only, which I was perusing, and I found some pretty cool games there. But I have a few more questions, a few questions that I'm actually going to ask all the indie developers that I interview, because I'm very curious to hear what kinds of different answers you folks will give. So first question is, what do you want gamers to know about indie game development or video game development in general? If you could communicate something to the gamer, what would you want to tell them?
To gamers, is that we, the indie developers, we value the support given for the gamer community, the gaming community. And I think that the more you support, not because you want them to help them, it's because if you enjoy the game or you think it has a potential to have fun and you're going to have a good time, this has a lot of impacts in the indie dev like companies, because this is the first step. If you play the games, indie games, then you are creating a new whole content for the future, because probably the next game is going to be better or is going to provide a different experience. So I think it's worth not just looking for AAA games. They're cool. I am one of the persons who play AAA games, but I think that at some point we can get like new contents, new fresh ideas from indie developers. But the way we can support that is, if you like their game, just buy it, get it, and that will give a high impact on those teams. I think.
Another thing that I think like is not more oriented to the game devs, but maybe the community is like when asking for things that the game can change. I mean, like I have noticed that the community, not our community, but normally the gamer community is very like how to say, like demanding. When they want things to be that way, but it's not that simple, like this is a business behind everything you see on Steam. So people have expenses, people have to pay things, and it's not that like a cheap thing that you're going to do just because people ask you to do. So I think that there is a bit like misleading information that when you make a game, you're rich, which it's 75% or 80%, it doesn't happen. Like we are luckily in the niche of indie game developers that we reach more than I think it's like 10% of the game devs who have success. I think it's less, but there are like a little bit of like bubbles. If you go from this downloads to that downloads, you are in the fail indie game devs. So, but luckily we're not there. But like how many more studios have failed at this moment who launched the game at the same, in January as us? They are already closed. So, like Isaac said, like if you support this kind of industry, you're going to expect new kind of experience. But at the same time, if you demand like to be the quality of the AAA companies, like how are you going to expect that people are going to do that? It's very expensive. The AAA companies have building of 40 or 100 people working on single things, right, while we are like two guys like working from our house because we love to make games. It's not the same. So I think like it's hard that people can digest what really indie game developers are. And yeah, that's pretty much what I would think that people should like dig in more information about not the games itself, but the financial side, because it's going to help people to understand about prices, about everything, if you go with the game, you're indie and you put it $24 or $39.99, what will people expect, right? Because AAA games are that price. Like, so they're going to compare the quality, which is not going to be the same. So people will say, why is this game too expensive? But they don't understand that maybe with 2,000 downloads, this studio will raise up. But yeah,
so how do you feel about this? So full transparency, I bought Tiny Lands when it was on sale. And how do you feel about this culture of like, there's a lot of videos on YouTube. The more I think about it, the more I think that you'll think it's a good thing. But there's so many videos on YouTube that are like, these are the games that are on sale this week, so you should go buy them because they're on sale. Like most of the games that I buy, especially for this podcast, because I'm not made of money just like anyone else, I buy them when they're on sale. I mean, how do you feel about this? I mean, it's your decision to put your game on sale, correct?
Yeah.
I think that as a game developer, you have to think about that too from the beginning, because just as an example, if you're going to develop a game that is going to have like a final value of $9.99, for example, or maybe some developers do this strategy. They put their game on $19.99 and they don't think or they don't estimate with that base price. I think that this is pretty much what publishers do. They put their game on $19.99 and then they know that they're going to sell when they are on sale. Just to be clear, when you mean on sale is when they have discount, right?
Yeah, that's what I meant. Yeah,
okay.
Discount.
So the publisher thinks, okay, I'm going to put this game on $19.99 to create like the higher expectation of price. Okay. And when, of course, you see 50%, okay, this is a deal. I'm going to get 50%. But at the end, they are estimating the value of the game of $19.99. I don't know if I explain myself. So that's part of like the strategy you can do or not to when you are building your game. In the case of Tiny Lands, we didn't think it in that way too much, but we always, when we do estimations based on, for example, if the game's its value is $6.99. We do estimation. We say, okay, let's imagine the game
$4.99,
$4.99 or $3.99. So we do estimation with those values, not with the final value, because we know. And I do that as a gamer too. I wait when my favorite games maybe are on a pretty nice discount. I get it. Or maybe if I want to play exclusive game, I just bought it for the full price.
So I think a strategy you could, maybe this is what you're communicating, is you could basically say, all right, so the proper price for my game should be $9.99, but I'm going to price it at $19.99 and like always have it on sale at 50% off, so that it's technically selling at the price that it needs to sell for me to make money and sustain myself. But it also is clever advertising in that the gamer will always see it in the discount list. Correct?
Exactly. Yeah, it's a marketing strategy, I think, most of the time.
Very interesting. I like that a lot. That's very cool. So,
and I think that's just to add. I think that it's also like, for example, the people pays like the waiting time. For example, I was waiting for a game and I wanted to play, but I didn't want to buy it at the full price because I felt it like kind of expensive. Right. So what I didn't pay, meaning the full price, I had to wait like 6 months until that discount came up. So my loss as a gamer was I couldn't play that game for 6 months because I didn't pay the full price, right?
Right.
So this is like you give and take. Okay, you receive what you. For example, the 50% discount is not going to come in the next month. Maybe it's going to come in the 6 months or 8 months after release, or maybe in the next year. So that's pretty much what you pay as a gamer to wait for a sale.
Okay. This is all very interesting and totally new to me. And I want to say, if anyone's listening to this who is a video game developer, you should keep listening to me when I interview indie game developers, because this is the kind of information that I'm going to try to get out of my guests. This is the kind of thing that interests me, and this is the kind of thing that I think other indie game developers will find value in when they listen to interviews such as this one. So thank you so much, guys, for getting into that and enlightening me and my audience.
Yeah, no problem.
So I have just 2 more questions. I don't want to keep you guys too much longer. So maybe we already went over this. What is one piece of advice you would give to other indie game devs? If you want to just give like one, like a soundbite, a snippet, like what is one piece of advice you would give to an aspiring indie game developer?
Well, in my case, if you are developing your game, if you have like your indie dream, start with something achievable. Don't start with things that you know that you're not going to achieve. Don't go too high. Go start with small things, because that is going to be your first step, and then it will help you to give the next step. So you have to start small. Think big, but start small.
Okay. Very cool.
Right. I think the other thing is like at least make a small team of 2 or 3 people, because going solo developer, it's kind of hard, because even if you are a super genius person, you're not going to be able to do everything. So if you want to have like sanity in your mind, because everyone have a life, I think, like make a team in which everyone has its own like job. So you need a programmer, you need an artist, you need a musician. That's what I think that is the basic composition of team. And either way, the musician could be paid later on. You can start with 2 artists. I don't know. But as Isaac said, start small, because you're not going to have the big budget of all the people start and make these very good, great indie games that you see on the news, you see on YouTube. I mean, they probably make a lot of games before this successful game. Yeah. Right. You know, like I have researched some indie games that are very well known right now, but do you know that they had like 5 more failed games that they just get like 3 reviews on Steam, and you will never believe that these are the same guys who are like making these new games. For example, there is one of the games that we have on the same publisher, which is Calico, and I just like checked their games. They have a lot of games. So, and the first one had only 5 reviews, but the new game have more than 1,000 reviews on Steam. So, which means that it's very positive. So, never think that your first game is going to make you rich or going to make you a lot of things, because it's not going to happen. Okay. For us, this is not our first game. We have like 8 more fails on the
Yeah.
background
Okay.
from almost 10 years working on this. So that's why it's when you get to this point that you start to think more on what you're doing and what you're creating and thinking more than a business, because it's going to be, it needs to be a business because you have cost every month. And if you don't survive those costs, how are you going to get more money in the future, right? So there are a lot of things that come in game, but very much I think that the team and the vision of what you want to achieve and to fail, it's very important, right? It's good to fail. It's not bad.
Certainly.
And if you can start failing right now, that the better.
Yes, I agree. That is really good advice. I appreciate you guys sharing that. So my final question will be, again, another question I ask all my guests. I was hoping that you guys would name another indie game developer that you think I should get on this podcast. Who is someone in the industry that you respect and admire that you think would make an awesome interview worth listening to for you personally? Like if I had these people on the show, you would definitely listen to the interview. Who do you want to call out?
Oh, Isaac, you have one.
I have a recommendation. I have been following a developer. I think she's a girl, and she's from Australia, and she's developing a game called Delphinium, as far as I know. And I think the game has a lot of potential. When I saw just the image, I think this is going to be like a nice hit when she released her game. So I think that it's a very cool game. It's like a narrative-driven game with some farming simulation, but the visual are just stunning. It's just lovely.
So this is the game that you mentioned before the interview, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Yes, I did see it on Twitter. I'm looking at it right now, and we talked about it earlier. It really looks really, really cool. I would love to interview this developer because the game, when you just look at this little video, this like 25-second video that I'm seeing here on Twitter, it is pretty arresting. Like I said, the lighting looks amazing. Like I cannot wait to see what comes out.
Yeah, I have another one, which is, I just know the title of the game, which is A Little to the Left.
Okay.
I found that game like a month ago on itch.io, and I just loved the game. And I saw, if I were a publisher, I would just buy this game to this guy and publish on Nintendo Switch and Steam. And they did it just recently. I think it's coming on 21st October. And I would just saw like a lot of potential, like making games, like sharp your eye to see great projects who have very good potential. And I think in the future, if we get to convert into publisher, I will have a good eye because, this game, it's very simple. But at the same time, I saw it and I would instantly love to have this on my Nintendo Switch. And, that feeling is what it gives you there's something there, like telling you that it's going to have success. Yeah, it stands out. So this game, A Little to the Left, it's going to be released on Steam on 21, and I think on a Nintendo Switch. That will be a good story to hear about this, because I think there are two people making this game too.
It's a couple, yeah.
It's a couple, yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
I'm looking at it right now, and it does look really, really cool. And I noticed it says download, name your own price. What's that all about?
In each EO, you can just put like a build, and then if you want, you can pay a price to support the developer. But if you don't want or you can't, you can just download the version. So normally you get on each IO, not the final version, but just like a trial or maybe something so you can experience the game. But if you want, you can support the developer.
Very cool. All right. Well, those are really good suggestions. I did not know that either of them existed until today. So thank you so much for putting them on my radar. Is there anything else you guys want to talk about before we wrap up?
Well, just for the people, thanks for the support about the DLC of Tiny Lands. We're really happy to release it. And we hope everyone who plays Tiny Lands just have some relaxing and chill time, finding the stories and Easter eggs and the references that we have put in the levels with so much love, and that you can enjoy either with your family, couples, or your children.
Yes, and thanks you for all the positive reviews. And if you haven't reviewed the game, please go and review it on Steam. That will help us even more. And thank you very much for your support. Thank you for the people who got the game. Thank you for keeping us continuing our indie dream. We are actually living the indie dream, even if we are not millionaires, but we are super happy. We are good enough to continue working, good enough to make new ideas and to continue this
journey.
Yes, this journey.
Awesome. Well, I have to say thank you for making the game and thank you for putting out DLC. I love talking to you guys. I love learning about the industry from you, and I love talking about your games with you. So if you ever want to come back on the show, you have an open invitation for whenever you put out new DLC or you put out a new game. Please, I would love it if you came back and we could talk more about developing games.
That would be great. I think we can keep in contact. I mean, for everything new that we're going to do, you're going to be one of the first one to know.
Awesome.
Yeah. Thank you for taking us in count and for considering us to be here with you and with all the people that is listening.
Cool. Well, thank you so much. That about wraps it up. Well, actually, first, just in case we don't know, tell us how to get the game and how to contact you guys, like on social media or whatever. Just give us the rundown.
Okay, so you can get the game on Steam, and you just go to the search bar and just type Tiny Lands, and then you will find the game. It's on Steam, and actually there is a 40% discount until September 11, I believe. And you can also
get it on Nintendo Switch.
Yes, and it's also a discount there. So if you want to get the game now, it's a good chance.
Sweet. And what about social media, like you guys on Twitter, Instagram, all that stuff?
Yes, you can find us on Twitter with Hyper3 Studio, Hyper and the number 3 Studio, Hyper3 Studio on Twitter, and on Instagram, Abraham.
Yeah, the same, Hyper3 Studio.
Yep.
All right. Awesome. So make sure you go follow those guys, check out what they're doing. I'm a big fan. I'm sure you guys have tons of fans everywhere else. And that wraps up the interview. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you, Gary. Thank you, everyone.
Well, that about wraps it up. One more time, thanks a million to Isaac and Virgilio Cortez for joining me today in this episode. Please go ahead and grab Tiny Lands on Steam and on Switch. Links will be in the show notes. Find them on Twitter at Hyper3 Studio. That's spelled with the number 3. And you can also find them on Instagram at Hyper3 Studio. And that 3 is spelled out. Go buy the game. It is so much fun. I cannot say enough good things about it. I've said so many good things about it in more than one episode now, so you got to trust me. Find me on Twitter. I am at IndieGameINTL. And, of course, if you want to sponsor the show, please hit me up on Twitter, or you can email me at sumadrepodcasts@gmail.com. That's SUMADRE podcasts, plural, @gmail.com. Okay, see you next time, and thank you so much for joining me this time.